Hippias Major is a highly disputed dialogue, although in recent years scholarly judgment seems to be tipping heavily in the direction of authenticity. The major problem it faces is simply that it is never actually cited by anyone until very late. Nevertheless, it happens to be very important for a key passage in the dialogue, which reveals to us that Socrates is the only son of Sophroniscus. The dialogue begins with Socrates hailing Hippias as splendid and wise, and notes that he hasn't been in Athens for a while. Hippias replies that he constantly gets sent on embassies for Elis and has recently most often been sent to Sparta. Socrates gets Hippias to try to give a definition of the beautiful, but Hippias turns out to have difficulty distinguishing between giving a definition of the beautiful and giving examples everyone recognizes as beautiful. Hippias first responds in a way and says that a beautiful maiden is beautiful. Socrates responds that it is not a question of knowing what is beautiful and what is not, but rather to define beauty itself and to say what makes beautiful things beautiful in the first place. The second response offered by Hippias is that beauty is gold. Basically, he says beauty is gold, and that even what appeared ugly will appear beautiful when adorned with gold. He gives an example of a man who's in some people's eyes not the most beautiful person, but when he's wearing nice clothes and everything, he looks beautiful. So that's the definition of beautiful offered by Hippias. To this, Socrates replies, I say then that for every man and everywhere it is most beautiful to be rich and healthy and honored by the Greeks, to reach old age and, after providing a beautiful funeral for his deceased parents, to be beautiful and splendidly buried by his own offspring. But what then of Achilles and Heracles? Was it beautiful for these two heroes to be buried before their parents, before the gods? Was there no beauty in their lives because they were not buried by their offspring? Beauty in this sense then applies to ordinary men, but it would be ugliness for heroes. Socrates proves this second definition of beauty offered by Hippias incorrect as well. Tiring of the errors of Hippias, Socrates offers a definition that the beautiful is simply that which is appropriate. This response pleases Hippias, but further examination is needed. First of all, is it the appropriateness which makes things beautiful, or does it simply make them appear to be beautiful? This second hypothesis is tempting. Even a ridiculous man dressed in nice clothing will appear more beautiful, but inside he would still be ridiculous. Thus, appropriate and beautiful are not the same thing. Hippias suggests that appropriateness provides at the same time the reality and the appearance of beauty. But then, nothing could be less sure. If everything was that simple, citizens and politicians would no longer have to quarrel to decide which action was the nicer. Socrates proposes a second solution. If it is beautiful, is it useful as well? But here again, problems surface. It is through power that men make things useful. Nevertheless, as it is well known, power can as much serve evil as it serves good, and there is difficulty in qualifying actions as bad or good, which in turn requires that the definition be refocused. Beauty is only usefulness applied to good ends or those that are favorable, is the new definition. Identifying the beautiful and the favorable leads to a paradox, however. The favorable procreates the beautiful as a father procreates a son. Since the favorable and the beautiful are thus considered to be the one and the same, they arrive at the finding that beauty is the reason of goodness. In logic, a cause and an effect are two different things, as a father is different from the son. And thus, they must conclude that beauty is not good and good is not beauty, an assertion which pleases neither Socrates nor Hippias. To conclude, Socrates brings out a final definition. At first glance, quite amazing. What if we were to say that is beautiful which makes us feel joy? I do not mean all pleasures, but that which makes us feel joy through hearing and sight. This hypothesis, while appealing, contains, according to Socrates himself, a fundamental law, that it ignores the beauty of the more noble pleasures. On the other hand, it seems striking that only the senses of sight and hearing are taken into account. Is this a way to submit to common opinion which is that touch, taste, and smell are somehow more shameful and base than the other senses. It is simply not because pleasure comes from seeing or hearing that it is beautiful. Socrates throws himself here into a series of considerations, taking into account pairs of objects. In the case of beauty, Socrates says that if a pair of two objects is beautiful, it stands to reason that each of them is beautiful individually. But a new paradox appears, since the beautiful must belong to both pleasures of sight and hearing, taken jointly, and cannot belong to only one of them. The definition, as a result, proves to be flawed. Exhausted by the many questions they have considered, Hippias berates Socrates and urges him, instead of with mere talk and nonsense, to seek beauty in the ability to produce a discourse well and beautifully in a court of law or a council house, or before any other public body before which the discourse may be delivered. Socrates, taking his leave, pretends to feel bad about the situation, cornered between the attacks of Hippias and those of his mysterious opponent. His only certainty, he concludes with a sense of humor, is that from now on he better understands the Greek proverb, "Beautiful things are difficult."